She came to the mansion with trembling hands, clutching her resume like it was her last hope.
I just need the job, ma'am.
She whispered, her voice shaking. The white lady at the door smiled politely until her eyes landed on the girl's face. Her hand froze midair. The color drained from her cheeks.
What did you say your name was again?
She stammered. The room fell silent. The girl blinked, confused.
My name's Leela, ma'am. Leela Carter.
The woman's knees nearly gave out. That name, that face, the same scar beneath the eye. Could this poor black maid standing before her really be the granddaughter she lost 10 years ago? Before we go further, tell me in the comments, where are you watching from and what time is it right now? I love seeing how far these stories travel. Leila Carter had never stepped foot in a neighborhood like this before. The gates of the Whitmore estate gleamed like gold beneath the morning sun, and the marble fountain at the entrance looked too perfect, too distant from anything she'd ever known. At 19, Leila had already seen more struggle than most people twice her age. Her mother passed when she was 12, and her grandmother, who'd raised her since then, worked 2 jobs just to keep a roof over their heads. When her grandmother fell ill, Leila dropped out of community college to help pay the bills. "I'll take anything," she told the hiring manager over the phone. "Cleaning, laundry, dishes, whatever you need." Now she stood in front of that towering mansion, smoothing her thrifted blouse, her heart pounding. The ad said they needed a live-in maid for a wealthy family, a job that could finally pull her and her grandmother out of debt. But as she waited at the heavy oak doors, she couldn't shake a strange feeling. Something about the place felt familiar. A melody drifted faintly from the piano inside, a tune she couldn't remember learning, but somehow knew. When the door opened and the elegant white woman appeared, Leila forced a nervous smile. "Good morning, ma'am. I'm here about the maid position." The woman nodded politely, but her expression shifted the moment their eyes met, like she'd just seen a ghost. Leila frowned, unsure what she'd done wrong. And though she couldn't know it yet, that simple job interview would uncover a secret buried for more than a decade, one that would shatter both their worlds. The woman, Mrs. Whitmore, invited Leila inside, her eyes flicking nervously between the girl's face and her trembling hands. "Please sit," she said softly, though her voice betrayed a quiet panic. Leila obeyed, glancing around the living room. Everything gleamed, glass chandeliers, white marble floors, portraits of pale faces with proud eyes. The kind of place where people like her were never meant to belong. Mrs. Whitmore forced a smile. "So, Leila, tell me about yourself." Leila hesitated. "Not much to tell, ma'am. I grew up on the South Side. My grandma raised me. I just need work." "She's sick." The woman nodded slowly, but her gaze lingered. The scar under Leila's left eye, the shape of her nose, the same honey-brown eyes she used to kiss goodnight a decade ago. Mrs. Whitmore excused herself suddenly, muttering something about getting tea. In the hallway she clutched her phone, her breath unsteady. "Edward," she whispered to her husband. "The new maid. She looks exactly like Emily." "Emily's gone, Claire," he replied sharply. "Don't start this again." But Claire couldn't shake it. She returned to the room, pretending to smile. By the next morning, Leila was hired. She scrubbed floors, polished silver, and stayed invisible. At least she tried to. The other staff barely spoke to her, whispering behind her back. "She's from the South Side," one maid sneered. "No wonder she smells like bleach." "She's lucky they even let her in this house," another added. Leila swallowed the insults and worked harder, but the tension only grew. One afternoon she accidentally dropped a crystal vase. Before she could even apologize, Mrs. Whitmore's sister, a pale woman with diamond earrings, snapped, "Of course. This is why we don't hire people like you." The words hit harder than the sound of the vase shattering. Leila stood frozen, her cheeks burning. Mrs. Whitmore's face turned pale again, not from anger this time, but guilt. "That's enough, Margaret," she said quietly. "Go to your room, Leila. I'll handle this." That night, Leila sat by her window staring at the stars. She missed her grandmother, missed the warmth of home. But something about this house, its smell, its echoes, felt tied to her somehow. She pulled out an old photograph from her pocket, her grandmother holding a toddler. Her grandmother used to say, "You were meant for a better life once." But life had other plans. When she looked at the picture again, she froze. Behind her grandmother, barely visible in the corner, was a glimpse of that same mansion, the same carved pillars. The next morning, Lila worked in the study, dusting shelves. She spotted a family portrait, Mrs. Whitmore, her husband, and a little blonde girl with a small scar beneath her left eye. Her breath caught. It was her face, the same scar, the same eyes. Her hands trembled as the frame slipped from her fingers and hit the floor. Behind her, Mrs. Whitmore's voice broke the silence, soft but trembling. "Lila, where did you get that scar?" And just like that, the world around them stopped. Mrs. Whitmore's question hung heavy in the air. Lila turned slowly, her hands trembling. "My scar, I got it when I was little. Grandma said I fell near a lake." Mrs. Whitmore's breath hitched. "Lakewood Park," she whispered, eyes filling with tears. Lila froze. "How do you know that?" The woman reached for a drawer, pulling out a faded newspaper clipping. The headline read, "Toddler missing from Lakewood Park. Family offers reward." Beneath it was a picture of a 2-year-old girl, with the same scar, the same eyes. "That's impossible," Lila stammered. "That's not me," Mrs. Whitmore's voice cracked. "It is you. You were taken, Lila, stolen from us." The room spun. Her heart pounded so hard she could barely breathe. "No, my grandma raised me. She loved me. She wasn't your grandmother," Mrs. Whitmore interrupted, tears spilling. "She was the maid, my maid. She disappeared the same night you did." Lila's knees went weak. No, you're lying." "I wish I were," the woman whispered. "We called the police. But when they found her, she was gone. Everyone said she ran off with you to hide the shame. But I never stopped looking. Rage, grief, and confusion collided inside Lila. Her grandmother, the woman who had worked herself to the bone, who'd fed her, loved her, protected her from a world that never saw her as equal, had been their maid. Lila's voice broke. "So now what? You think I'll just come back to this house and pretend everything's fine? After what your family did to her?" Mrs. Whitmore's sobs filled the silence. "I just want to make it right." "Make it right?" Lila whispered. "You can't make right what was stolen." The woman stepped closer, reaching for her. "Please, Lila, Emily." Lila stepped back, eyes filled with tears. "Don't call me that. You lost that name the day your world forgot people like us existed." She turned toward the door, and for the first time in her life, she wasn't running from her past. She was walking through it. Behind her, Mrs. Whitmore's cry echoed through the marble halls. "Lila, please, don't go." But she already had. Lila never went back to the Whitmore mansion. She left that day with nothing but the clothes on her back and a storm of questions she wasn't sure she wanted answered. The truth had set her free, but it also broke something inside her. Days later, Mrs. Whitmore found her at a small community church on the south side. She brought flowers and an apology that trembled on her lips. "I can't change what happened," she said softly, "but I can face it. I can face us." Lila stared at her for a long time. "Then start by learning what she lived through," she whispered. "Learn what it cost her to raise a child the world said didn't belong." Mrs. Whitmore nodded, tears in her eyes. "I will." They didn't hug. They didn't reconcile overnight. But something shifted, a truth finally spoken after years of silence. Weeks later, Lila returned to her grandmother's old home, now empty but still filled with her scent. She stood in front of a faded picture frame and whispered, "You did what you had to do. You gave me love when the world gave you none." The world outside was still divided, still cruel in places. But for the first time, Lila felt whole, because she finally knew who she was. And yet, one question lingered. How many more families like hers had been torn apart by the invisible lines of race, wealth, and power? How many more missing children were really just stories rewritten to protect the privileged? Lila's story isn't just about blood. It's about belonging, justice, and truth. Because sometimes the real tragedy isn't what was lost. It's how long it took to see what was stolen. And until the world confronts that truth, how many more will still be missing? If this story touched your heart, take a second to hit that like button. It helps more people hear stories that matter. And tell me in the comments, what would you have done if you were in Lila's place? Don't forget to subscribe for more real, powerful stories like this one.